But you got the hat memo.
I'm not on.
I did. So yes. Okay. Well.
There was a hat thing too.
All right. Good. Well.
And I'll be back.
I'm recording all this.
He's just not ready.
I'm recording all this.
Recording all this already?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Here we go.
This is good stuff.
Nice.
All right, so now we're all gangster
and we're doing
because it's incredibly important for a podcast because they can see it.
It's like any project I direct. I don't tell the actors I'm recording, and that's where you get the good stuff. They don't need to know. I want to get those candid things of you bitching about somebody else.
And what are we, a team? No. We're a chemical mixture that makes chaos. We're a time bomb.
All right, Avengers. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know Mark Ruffalo's voice.
Yeah. Push me. Bring it. I'm down for that. Yeah. So. All right, so let's get this started. Everyone ready?
I'm ready. Present.
All right, cool. All right, let's do this. Run the theme thumb. And welcome to Hurry Up and Wait LA. For those of you who have been listening to us, this is our first home show. So you don't hear the crowd.
Home show. So we're going to be the crowd in the background. From time to time, we're going to be like, ah.
Yeah. Woohoo. Yeah. Which, this is fun. But it's new, and it's weird, and it's fun. And it's good. I forgot. I don't have to introduce. So let me introduce our usual host. We have Veronica Roy.
Holla, holla, holla.
And Jorge-Luis Pallo.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
And me, Landis. I'm just here. Don't worry about me.
Landis Calrissian. That's what I've been. I'm creating a hashtag, actually. Of that.
I know, and I appreciate it.
Landis Calrissian.
I appreciate it, but I'm also bummed out that Donald Glover?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually a badass.
Yeah,
Calrissian. Great.
Yeah, so I can't live up.
Knew that.
Yeah, but I can't.
We knew that.
But I can't live up to that standard though. Like I just on the trailer list alone, I'm like, this guy's smooth. I like this guy.
When I'm saying you're Lando,
haven't you been playing Lando Calrissian by default since you were a kid? Anyway, I know I have.
Nah.
I grew up,
You've been the only black man, like in space.
Only brown guy.
Only brown guy in space. Yeah.
I'm not black. I'm the only brown guy hanging out with a bunch of freaking white boys. Oh, sorry, I'm not.
Turn the mic towards you.
The microphone. That's why we have them.
No, I was always Lando when we were playing Star Wars.
No, just by the name, but
Alone.
no.
Is that your real last name, by the way?
No, okay, it's Landis. My first name's Landis. So
okay.
But no one ever remembers Landis, so it's either Lance or Lando for some reason.
That's hilarious because it's the only version in pop culture right now of Landis.
Landis.
And then they figure out the ending.
What does Landis mean? Does it have a meaning?
No. Okay. So here's my backstory, and I hope my mom listens to this because she owes me. So
I like that she owes you.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm admitted. Part of my stand-up is how there's people that should never have kids. Those were my two parents. They should have never had children. No, not a sad thing. A true statement. True statement. These people. No. But okay. So my grandmother and her Alzheimer's is the one that told me the truth. I grew up I'm born and raised in Puerto Rico. So my mom always. Very typical Puerto Rican women like to be the center of attention a lot. Big in Hispanic culture. So she always told me the story how she thought of it, came up with a name, combined my father's middle name with my uncle's some BS. That's it. Good. Came up with Landis. My grandmother and her Alzheimer's tells me that was bullshit because I was 12 pounds. So they drugged the fuck out of my mom. And Puerto Rican women don't believe in cesarean unless it's an emergency. It's like a badge of honor. So she pushed me the fuck out.
11 pounds? 12 pounds?
12 pounds. So it was like 1190. Yeah, 12 pounds. 12 pounds.
Round it up.
I was a fat ass, and I came out, and luckily she was she was a dancer. Luckily she had flexibility.
So okay.
But to this day, she's still saying, "Look, you still owe me my stomach, my belly tuck because I fucked her up." Like if you look at her belly, yeah, I did fuck her up. But
I did that.
I did that, but. My grandmother's the one that told me that she was so fucking high on morphine that when the nurse came in to fill out the papers, she blurted out Landis, and it was by accident. So it wasn't anything that she did creatively or thought about it.
That's actually a much better story.
I know!
What is it supposed to be?
It's out of a drug-induced...
Exactly!
Wait. But what was it supposed to be?
That she came up with combining like my dad's middle name and my uncle's middle name.
That she didn't already have like in her brain, so she just like came up with the first two sounds sounds.
No,
in her
she
drug state?
planned it out. She planned
probably-
it out
she
and
could've
she
said,
created it.
Yeah, no.
For heart block.
No,
Yeah.
For all
the
you
plan,
know.
Yeah.
What was the planned name?
Oh, they didn't have a name. They didn't have a name for me.
Planned.
I was an
They
accident.
didn't
That's why I say
wait
parents should.
Until that day.
Yeah, no, I
They
get.
wait till the
All
last
right.
minute. They're like, you know what?
Yeah.
He looks like a Pedro.
Yeah. No, I listen. My childhood is this. Like, I was the accident. I was the oops. They wanted a girl and a boy, and I was the guy who just came up in the middle. On top of that, they didn't plan for it, so they didn't have anything planned. It was bullshit. Like, this is my childhood. My older brother, he would get all the good guys in every toy, and I would get all the bad guys in all the toys. That fucked me up.
Wow.
Yeah, but my mom thought, oh, it's good. They're two brothers. We'll divide it. No. The only reason only
There's
reason
only so many times you could be Cobra Commander.
Exactly.
without taking
No.
that fucking
Personally.
it's like I still
That being said, I always root for the bad guys. So
He said, well, I still remember Christmas. I was 3 years old. It was 80 something. I was 3 years old, and I remember this distinctly because they would sell the whole set. Like a big package with all the good guys and the bad guys. My brother opened his up, and I was like, "Oh, He-Man!" And I opened it up, and all I see is Skeletor, and not the set, only Skeletor.
Oh, so you didn't even
only
get
Skeletor,
Beastmaster or
nothing.
What was the fishy guy, Merman?
Yeah,
what about
nothing.
Trapjaw?
Nothing.
Trapjaw.
He got the whole fucking set.
He knows.
Yeah.
He knows his
See?
man. Yes. All right.
The only time I got the benefit of it is in Transformers, where I got Megatron, and he was a gun.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the only time where my older brother stole that from me because I got the best toy.
Well, fuck
Everything
yeah, you'd
else,
rather get Megatron
nothing.
than
hell yeah.
Nothing.
I have the Megatron from Beast Machines where he's a dragon.
Nice.
And he transforms into a
What?
dragon. It's pretty badass.
Nice.
He's in my closet.
Soundwave was my favorite
Soundwave's
because
cool.
he
Yeah.
came with little robots
Right.
that were tapes, and they turned into cool things. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the Razor.
yeah.
Yeah.
One was a hawk, one was a panther. One was another little robot that
Oh,
came
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It was like-
Rumble.
Yeah, Rumble.
Yeah. I don't
Forget
know.
about it.
You're with old school people here.
Yeah.
I was like, we've officially passed my knowledge. I'm like, I did
yeah,
not
yeah.
really
Really?
follow.
I thought
You
you
don't
were
come
with
about
us.
until like Dragon
No.
Ball Z.
Yeah.
I mean, I may have
Or
been out of the
Teenage Mutant
country.
Ninja Turtles.
And that's the thing. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
TMNT,
We were talking Goonies though when you knew what we
Yeah,
were
you
talking
knew
about
Goonies.
earlier.
Yeah, for
so.
sure. But I actually, to be honest, I've never seen the movie all the way through because I keep falling asleep.
Hey, you know what? Our audience is probably wondering who the fourth voice is at this point.
Oh, listen,
We've been
introduce our guest.
blabbing for a little bit.
This is why I
Maybe
like
I'm just new here. I'm just going with the
stuff.
flow. I'm participating.
This is why I like the home show. That's it. But, all right, hold on. Introduce our guest, and we continue the conversation.
All right,
Who this
all
guy
right. So,
be?
ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman sitting to my right, his name is Kenneth Castillo.
I like how you sing it in your radio voice.
He is a here we
Smooth
go.
radio.
Welcome
liking
to WKRP in Cincinnati.
Not looking at
Hey.
me. It's like, wow.
It's like the midnight.
He's a
show.
very talented director. Has directed 7 feature films. Is an award winner. I made him a little something. I hope he likes it.
Oh my
Little,
God.
little something,
A
something.
little something,
Something,
something.
something.
And here's how it goes.
That's not following.
My name is Kenneth Castillo, and the project I'm currently working on is Mr. T. I'm the fighter, he's the lover. It's not a small world. Small maybe.
You're a boxer. You're a boxer, you go for that. I don't have many beautiful things in my life, but this is one of them. I'm shooting Marigold the Matador. I'm in my hometown in downtown Wilmington.
You were shooting when you were there?
The idea was to shoot my 7th feature film in 7 days.
Ay, mi guapa. This great guy, Joe, and he let us shoot some pictures of his car. It's a 50.
You're so Mexican. Yes. My name is Kenneth Castillo, and the project I'm currently working on is...
Wow.
Bam!
Wow, a few of those got me a little choked up.
Nice.
So my first question to you is just how Mexican are you?
And it's very important how you answer this because we may cut the episode short.
I'm like, I am about 3/4 Mexican. So
Mexican.
yeah, I got my mom is full Mexican. My dad is half and half French. So yeah,
nice.
so I got a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so you come from one of the good. So a third of you or fourth of you is from one of the good countries. obviously. According
Because
to
they say the good
Well, I
kind.
figure if I ever get to Cannes,
one of the
that
piece of
French
shit
side will
ones.
come out, and I'll be able to give my acceptance speech in French. So we'll see. I don't know.
All right. So we always like to get this started. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Are you a local, LA local?
Yeah, I am an LA local. I grew up in a small town called Wilmington, and it's actually the Port of Los Angeles. If you're from there, it's called Huimas.
Where is that in relation to L.A.?
That is, if you look at a map, there's this long strip along the 110 that will connect the Port of Los Angeles. We're in between Long Beach and San Pedro. So we're this like armpit area right there, and very industrial, a lot of refineries and trains, and it was an interesting place to grow up. So a lot of...
So how did a boy who grew up in an industrial area in Wilmington decide that he was going to be an artist?
Well,
when did that start?
That's a great question. I wasn't around artists. I wasn't surrounded by artists at all. I didn't know what I wanted to do until I got out of high school, and I thought I wanted to be an actor, and I got into an acting academy, actually, and that's just where I met my wife and was there for 3 years. But I like
Wait, so how long have you been with your wife? Because this is so after high school?
We met at 19.
Oh, wow.
And
And Carla is a lovely woman. I met her.
Thank you very much. Yeah, she is. We've been together 25 years this October.
Whoa, that's silver, right?
Yeah, well, we've been married 18 of those. We were together 7 years before we got married.
Belated happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
Right,
But
so you guys met? At
yeah,
the
so we
academy?
met there. I like I said, I wanted to get out of Wilmington, and I just had the guts to go to this place, and was surrounded by a bunch of people who weren't afraid to be themselves, and I was inspired by that. I kind of grew up very angry and introverted, and
you are Latino, right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like I just I had no way of expressing myself really, and no one to teach me how to do that.
Especially as a Latino male too, where you're taught like suck it up, right?
Yeah, and it's like there was an emphasis put on education. When I got to high school, I really hated it. Really hated high school, so it was a tough 4 years. I was told that I needed to complete it, which I did. But once I got out, it was like, okay, now I can do what I want, and I'm going to figure everything out. And I remember like buying like a bunch of self-help books. I didn't know what to turn to, and I just was reading different things, and I found I wanted to go to a different school outside of where I was. Like everyone went to Harbor College in Wilmington. And so I chose LA City College, and they had an acting academy. I thought, all right, well, let me try. Maybe that's what I want to do. So I auditioned.
Just to backtrack, did you have any like introduction into acting before that?
Yeah, I just a theater arts class in school. I always loved movies.
Yeah.
That was my thing. I've always loved movies. That was my escape. I loved movies. Family Film Festival was a big thing on Saturdays. I don't know if anyone remembers the Family Film Festival. Lots of old school generation, KTLA, Tom Haddon. He used to host this thing called the Family Film Festival on Saturdays, and they would show like West Side Story and Oliver Twist, and sometimes they'd show Patton, and sometimes they'd show The Godfather, and they would show all these great films that were edited to TV, and depending on, my dad was the one that introduced me sort of to like movies like The Deer Hunter and The Godfather, and my mom was like, oh, you gotta watch this movie Yankee Doodle Dandy, you'll love it, you'll love the guy, and I'd be like, hell no, I'm not gonna watch no musical, and James Cagney became like my favorite actor. To this day is my favorite actor of all time. My son's middle name is Cagney, his legal middle name is Cagney. Yeah.
Julian Cagney.
Yeah.
Castillo.
Yeah.
That's gangster.
That is gangster name.
That's gangster.
Yeah, and an interesting fact about that was James Cagney was born with a birth defect. He couldn't extend his arms. He had short tendons in his elbow. And my son, we found out later, 13 months, he couldn't rotate his left arm. And his two bones, his radial and his lumbar bones, are fused at the elbow. And so he cannot rotate his left arm.
So it's meant to be.
Yeah, it was kind of strange, yeah.
So,
All right, so you meet your wife at the academy.
Yes, we met like second week. She was dating a tech major at the time.
Of
She
course.
hates when I tell
Of
this
course.
story because she feels like it paints her in a bad light. But the guy was boring. I'm sorry, but he was.
Yeah.
And
that's what college is about, right?
exactly. And I show up, and I noticed her right away, and that probably kept me there the first semester. because I really was like, I don't know if this is for me. But I was like, let me see where this goes.
And you saw that chola. And
yeah,
like,
she used to be a roller skating champion, and so she would have her roller skates on in the hallway, and I was at my locker one time. I looked back, and she was skating backwards, just looking at me, and she had this tight, high ponytail, and just looked at me. Didn't say anything. Skating backwards down the hallway, and then around the corner. I went.
She winked.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay and see how this works out.
I'm always amazed how men's career are defined more like, I'm going to date that girl. I'm going to stay here because I want to hook up with somebody.
Yeah. So, then this guy would bring her lunch, and he would be around, but I didn't know if they were together. I thought maybe it was her cousin or something. And I remember asking around, and someone said, yeah, they've been together for like a year and a half. And I go, well, look, if I was with her, everyone in this freaking school would know it. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a question. But yeah, we ended up getting together, and then I had to take shop with him the next semester, which I didn't know.
Good times.
And all his best friends. And I'm around people with power saws and all kinds of dangerous shit that can hurt me. And but yeah, so
everybody's in the background just snapping fingers.
There's like subtle, passive, aggressive, like tendencies.
Yeah, their nail guns around, nails like gun. Like,
here's
coming
the
right
saw.
Here. I'm like, come on, man. It's all fair in love and war. You know? It's like,
don't be boring next time.
No, exactly. I feel bad. I did for a while, but like I would pick her 2 years after they had broken up. I'd go and pick her up at her mom's house with my future mother-in-law. And he would be there in the living room crying to my future mother-in-law how Carla broke his heart.
Snap.
It would be funny because I'd show up. I'd be like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
This is like an episode of Shameless.
Take the girl and just go.
Hey, man, nice to see you. Carla, you ready to go?
That's exactly it.
All right, so many questions, but did your future mother-in-law just did not like you? Because I would have kicked that guy out.
Yeah.
She would not. She didn't like me at first. And because she really liked this guy. He was a very sweet guy. He was a very nice guy.
But boring. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's funny because this is 25 years ago. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but because I don't feel that old. But he eventually got over
today
it.
That guy is
hopefully
still crying.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
Today that guy is Will Smith.
Yeah.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
My big fear. My big fear was this guy was going to blow up, and she was going to someday be, or she'll be like, the duration of our marriage would be like, man, I should have stayed with Jose. You know, we wouldn't have lost our house. I would have dated a filmmaker.
I should have stayed with Will Smith.
All that stuff I want to get into too, because I read that excerpt from your book about your. But I want to stay on track.
So you want to stay on track, not talk about the most painful.
Well, we're going to get to the most painful thing about your life.
But it's juicy. This
Just
is
warming
good.
you up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, the easy questions.
So it was a 3-year program, and Mark Hamill actually had gone there. Luke's freaking Skywalker.
Freaking Skywalker.
One of his teachers.
The Joker.
Yeah, and he was. So that was really cool when we learned that. So that kind of kept me there too, and I learned the language and studied the craft of acting. I wasn't a very good actor. It took me about a year after where I basically said, no, I'm a director. I'm a writer director. And but I love actors and I love acting. I love the craft of acting. And so I looked at it that way. Like as a director, I had an advantage over in that sense that I could learn the technical aspects of film on my own. But I couldn't learn the language of acting without having gone through that program.
Yeah.
It's very true. There's still a lot of there's a lot of directors out there who are working professionally don't know how to talk to actors at all. They don't.
I tell people that all the time, especially filmmakers that come to me and they want to go to film school. I said, look, man, take an acting class.
Yeah.
I go because I see a ton of thesis films that come out and they look incredible, but that's because they were taught how to make it look incredible. But the acting and the story aren't there. You know what I mean? And so they don't teach acting to directors in these film schools, and so save your money. And they're like, well, that's awkward. Yeah, but you can suck. Like it doesn't.
You don't have to be.
I mean, if a teacher is criticizing you or encouraging you or trying to get you to connect to material, you're going to learn that,
Yeah.
how to respond to that, and that in turn is going to help you communicate with the actors and get a much better performance.
Yeah, the class that I teach, I've had directors take it. I teach a scene study class, and have had directors take it all the time.
Right.
They always come up to me later, and they're like, "It's just helpful watching you talk to them."
Right.
You know, so yeah, go follow an acting coach, acting teacher, talk to actors, and then
And I think you should probably promote that too, like for directors as well, because Judith Weston, I took this was after I'd done several films already, but she was the like premier like director, actor, teacher. She ran a scene study class. She has 2 books out. They're books that I recommend to directors in communicating with actors, but you should definitely do that. Like,
I'd love to.
because
I'd love to teach a class just for directors
and like have them come in and work with the scenes with the actors and stuff, which is what she did. So it was really great. She's worked with some big talent. So
And then likewise, it's good for actors to take a directing class, like on the flip side.
Definitely.
So
Well,
that,
I always
so that we are understanding like what it is that the director does and is responsible for, so that you're not just stuck in your own world. You're able to see like the bigger picture and be like, oh, okay, so the notes he's giving me is to be included in the bigger picture of making like the story work.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I try to, everyone talks to me about method, this method, that method. I said, look, I subscribe to the James Cagney School of Acting, which is plant your feet, look the other fellow in the eye, and tell the truth.
Yeah.
Now, whatever method you need to do that, by all means,
Yeah.
I go. But I just don't. I try to get people to connect. And as a director, I don't like to cheat. I like the 2-shot. I don't like having a close up and then the other actor leaving and someone standing in for that person. Even though, like I just recently saw On the Waterfront and read a book on that, Elia Kazan's book on directing. And, Rod Steiger did all of his films in that famous scene in the car with some PA on set.
It was
Brando just got up and left.
Wow.
On his
See,
close-up.
that is so. I could never do that to another actor.
Brando
allow
was
an
a
actor
famous
to
thing.
do
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, I could
Brando
never-
was a famous thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because as a director, I get the same thing where when I get hired as a DP, I end up doing the job as the director because they can't translate what they have in their brain to the actor.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with a kid, and it's like, no, they taught you how to be a good DP. You're a good DP. You're not a director.
Yeah.
You don't have the base of story. You don't know how to talk to people.
You know where to put your lights and keep your
and
camera
keep your
angles,
camera.
but how to
and that's it. And maybe
how to keep energy alive in a scene.
Right.
Well,
You know?
just basic storytelling. Like there's like we're shooting our web series and
Nice.
Web
we shot our first scene, and I'm telling Dan, Dan, playing, and my strength is comedy, so basically I'm going with him as he plays it. Okay, in this line, this is what this means. This is what this means, detail by detail, and it's a 1-minute scene.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that background in stand-up and comedy or acting, I couldn't translate this to them, so it just becomes flat and boring, and the jokes don't hit.
But also being a stand-up comedian is communication. You're communicating something to an audience, and that's to me what this is. It is the art of communication. You know, and having been with my wife for 25 years and having 2 kids, like I can answer any question. I can do, I can communicate like no one can, and that's really what it is being able to communicate your vision to not just to your cast but to your crew as well.
Yeah.
You know.
With your crew, do you? I'm interested in your crew. Do you work with a regular crew? Do you have because I know directors have like their DP and
their
their
go-tos.
their go-to guys. Do you
I
have
do. Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm going to try to give you the cliff notes on this. I did have that, and then it got really corrupted by people that I helped, and so I ended up walking away from everything that I had created and had to start from scratch. And the cool thing over the last 3 years is I've been able to prove to myself that I've been able to do that multiple times. You know, and so now I have a pool of DPs that I work with, a pool of actors that I work with that now I fully trust that and respect, and there's a mutual thing there. There isn't a there isn't a taking of anything.
It's collaborative effort.
So, yeah.
It definitely
Mutual
is. I
sharing,
think for me though, it's how do I say this? I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I helped a lot of people that took advantage.
David Smith.
I think
That damn David Smith.
David Smith.
I wasn't going to out you, David Smith, but there it is.
There it is,
Brought
David.
out. But
we're looking at you.
But so I did have that for a while, but it was very hard to just keep the purity of that, especially when I allowed other collaborators to kind of exploit those things, and then it just got muddied, and people's loyalties ended up shifting, and then I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to walk away from all of this. I cannot have my stuff intermediate. If you're going to work with them, that's fine, but you can't work with me because I don't trust you anymore, and I don't need my process bleeding into anything that they're doing.
Unfortunately,
Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. Okay. Unfortunately, that's a regular occurrence in LA. You know, you help. I've been there as well, where you help people out, and then the next minute you're like, do you forget that I was even here?
Exactly.
Or
And
wait a minute. Hey,
I was reading this agent.
not that I try to help you in order to get something back.
No, but
just
not
like,
that.
wait a minute.
It's a respect thing.
It's a respect thing.
It's been here since day one.
Just since day one. Just saying.
I picked you up in my car. We Ubered together.
No, Veronica,
it's
time for me to get the 20-year-old. I'm done with you.
Perfect. Good to know.
You're old.
No, it's cool.
I'm
it's whatever.
young.
Wow.
Stop. Yeah.
But the lessons,
and
and the lesson I learned from it was to stay open. I still had to stay open in terms of that, and you just got to keep going forward. Because it would have been real easy for me to say, you know what, if this is the business, then I need to quit. But I was like, well, why am I doing this? Because I love making movies. That's why. And there are other DPs and other editors and other colors, and I found all those people. And the people that were loyal to me within that group stayed with me. It was only maybe one or two of them, but they've elevated my work since then. And I just keep going. If I have my talent is just that I keep going, I guess. That's my
I was going to ask you, what is it that keeps you going? Because all right, let's backtrack a little bit to 2010. Why not? What is it that inspires you, that keeps you freaking going after? You want to tell everybody a little bit about
sure.
that?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a book that was recommended that I write by two filmmaker friends of mine. One is a mutual friend of ours, Fernando. Told me a few years back. Hey,
we're actually working on a project together.
Yeah, we did a project together that is actually going to be ready in the next couple of weeks to screen.
Whoop, whoop.
And basically said you should write a book about your experiences because you're unique in the sense that you still keep going even though you haven't gotten into Sundance and it had a stereotypical trajectory of a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He's like, and so everyone has heard the one hit wonders that get the age and all that, but they haven't heard your story. And then you have a kid and job and wife and the whole nine. And so I got overwhelmed by that because I don't know how I do it. So I started writing stuff down. But 2010 was interesting because I was starting my third film, and it was January 2nd, and I had just completed notes for my producer, and it was a beautiful day, and I got home to send my script to my first assistant director and my producers, and we were playing outside with my family and my 4-year-old son. I'm giving you the Cliff Note version, but I had always would block the driveway of our house with our car, so my son wouldn't run out into the street. So we don't have a fence there, and we live in a residential area. So that's what we did. And he had gotten a skateboard for Christmas, and he had all on the gear and everything. And I told my daughter, I go, oh, there's a bottle of champagne in the house. Go get it. So because our neighbors had just gotten home, and I wanted them to have a bottle of champagne for the new year. So she does to do that, and Julie, his name's Julian, but I call him Julie, and he goes, he's like, Pop, I want to go. We'll go with Maya. I said, okay, no problem. And he starts taking off all his stuff. So he's handing me all his stuff and that, and his friends live right across the street from us. And he thought, for some reason, that's where his sister was going. So I go to put the stuff down, and I turn, and he just darts across the street. And as he goes, I looked over my right shoulder, and I see a car coming. And I just saw it happen even before it even happened. And I screamed at him. And the thing was that my car that was blocking the driveway, if it wasn't there, the driver would have saw him and would have been able to stop. But the car was blocking his view. So this kid just juts out of front of my car and comes and he hits him. And
it's like slow motion too.
Yeah,
it
was very, and it was sort of like if you ever seen. First of all, let me always tell this story. My son's alive and healthy and happy and doing great.
Caveat.
I've met him.
Let's
caveat
caveat
to the
he's
story.
alive and well. I just had lunch with him today.
I'm trying to get you off the hook there. That always helps me get through the story too, to remind myself that he is okay.
Still can't rotate his elbow, but otherwise he's good.
Can't do that. But it was sort of like when you're watching football and a guy's like got this clear path and he's going, and then the guy just checks him on his shoulder, like barely hits him, but the guy goes flying up in the air because his own momentum. That's what happened. So like just a half second more, he would have been past the car. He would have made it. Half second slower, he would have been under it. So it threw him like 10 feet in the air. He landed on his face. Oh God. So the guy goes, he stops, gets out, and I run across the street. I grab Julie. I said something to the man to like not leave or something, and I tried to emblazon the license plate, but he wasn't leaving. And I picked up Julie. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I picked him up and took him to the front yard, and he was crying like this just weird cry like I'd never seen. And he was always real weird about as a baby. Like he didn't like his hands dirty. He didn't like his mouth. Like he wasn't a messy baby that way. So he had dirt and blood all over his face, and his head was starting to swell, and he was crying and trying to take the dirt out of his mouth, and he wasn't moving like the left side of his body. And I just was taking all this inventory, and I screamed at my wife to call 911, and my daughter's standing there. He was 4, so she was 7 at the time, and she was like in shock. So the ambulance came quick and picked him up and tore off all his clothes and put him on a stretcher, and to make sure he was in traction, and then got into the ambulance with my wife to Cedars. And so I had to drive there because they couldn't fit me in there as well. So my daughter went to go with our neighbor, and then we went to Cedars, and it was just.
How did you steel yourself to even drive? I would have been like, somebody drive.
I was I feel like I teleported to the hospital because I don't remember the drive.
But as a father, my daughter, I got a 2-year-old, and she suffered a seizure when she was 1.5. Oh wow! And I know how you got there. Like you go into survival mode, like A, B, C, this, because I didn't shed a tear until she got home and she went to bed. Then I broke down. Right. I broke down. It's like, but
it is very strange, but this calmness comes over you.
Yeah, it's like you go into this focus mode of like, oh shit, okay, call 911. You don't fucking leave. Right. Go in there, get everything, and then later it's like this rush of emotion comes over you.
Plus, you also have to be there for your wives as well. I imagine. Well, so that's the other thing.
But it's weird because it's like this flight, and it's this literally fight or flight mode that you go into, and it's like this book. At least for me, it was like. Check mark, and I've been trained in first aid, so I went to get the cold compression. Okay, she's not passed out. Good. But then when we get home, and my wife sits me down because she's been crying all the time, and she's had a really nice upbringing, so she's never dealt with anything like that. But then I just bawled. And bawled after the fact. But yeah, I know how you got there. It just you were just like, I gotta focus.
No, everything you just said right there is true. I mean, when you and it was just. Getting to Cedars and seeing the trauma people work on him, and it was just he was kind of in this weird shock. He wasn't talking. He was in pain because he had palm tree and pine needles lodged in his orbital bone, and they thought it was just a splinter, and then she couldn't get it out.
What time of year was this?
It was the winter, but it was like 75 degrees out. It was like a beautiful day.
California winter.
It was California winter. Yeah. So, but he ended up being in ICU for 3 days, and then he was in physical therapy for another 4 or 5 days after that. But he wouldn't walk, and so. If they could get him to stand, they were going to transfer him to another hospital, but they didn't want him to go through the trauma of that. So if they could get him to stand, but here's the thing about Cedars, which is brilliant, and they're beautiful over there. It's like they were bringing him a toy every day. He had SpongeBob on from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to bed. And people that were visiting him were bringing him toys. I mean, he's 4 years old. I think. What if I told my wife, he probably thought he died and now he's in heaven. I go, he's not going to come home. This isn't going to help him get home. And I go, I want him home. And if they can't do anything else for him, then we need to bring him home. And so the physical therapist was like, there's no spinal damage. He had a concussion. There might be some brain damage, but you're going to know more taking him home. We can send you to another hospital if you want, but I would suggest if you can just get him to stand and take one step, we could at least send you home. So I said, Julie, do you want to go home? And he didn't know how to answer that. And I'm like, of course he's want to go home. SpongeBob.
I don't know, Dad. This place is kind of cool.
Living in Toys R Us.
Yeah, and
nurses are really sweet. I get 3 square meals a day.
Everybody comes and visits me and brings me stuff. So my wife had not left the hospital for the entire time. So she didn't take a shower for the entire time. She did not leave.
Oh, so she was right by the end
Oh,
of
yeah.
it.
And I told him, I said, Mama wants to go home.
Yeah.
And I go, and she's not going to go home without you.
Yeah.
So all I need you to do is stand, and I need you to take 2 steps. And so, like, he's like, okay. So I picked him up, and, like, he's standing like a little, like, wet.
Deer.
Yeah.
Baby deer.
Baby deer. And his legs are all shaking, but he stood there, and then he took, like, 1 step, and then he took another step, and then he collapsed. And so I felt like, okay, he could be normal. My thing was, I could deal with any physical thing he had. I just mentally, he's such a unique and sweet baby and an adventurous boy and just your typical, like, he's like a 1920s kid, and I just didn't want him to be different in that way. I didn't know if that was going to be possible. Any physical thing I could deal with. So he still had this, fire. And so we ended up taking him home, but he crawled like an army man for at least 5 days before he started to take a step, and then he had to really learn like how to walk again.
Oh wow!
So was it like a psychological thing, or was it a physical thing?
There was some nerve damage, and muscle damage, but he's 4, so he's still growing.
Yeah,
and he had been walking since he was 18 months, or not even 18, 13 months. Yeah, so. So it all eventually ended up coming back, and the movie I was supposed to do.
So he didn't get like any vibranium or adamantium bones or anything to go along.
He also didn't go to Wakanda.
That would have been really. He didn't get any claws.
That's only in Canada
claws.
because we don't have universal health care.
Oh, okay.
Here it's
Because he could have been the Mexican Wolverine.
He could have been. He did some cool Superman pajamas, so he thought he was Superman because he got hit by a car and lived a telltale.
Yeah.
And he has a really cool scar under his left eye.
That's going to come in really handy with the ladies later.
He's 12 now. Going to be 13. And,
he's already planning that up.
He's already knowing, like, I got hit by a car. It was pretty terrible. I couldn't walk.
Pretty legit. I'm all good now because I'm a warrior.
Yeah, it was hell, man.
They said spine damage. Well, I wasn't going to walk. And I said, fuck that.
Yeah, man. I was like,
all the
no
girls
way,
are like, "Hi, papi, really?
Yeah. That's terrible.
That's terrible. Hi, papi."
The first time, like, I saw him do that too was it last year, 2 years ago, where some of the kids didn't believe him. So I went to go pick him up from school, and they all like ran up to me, like ahead of him, and they're like, "Did Julian get hit by a car?" And I'm like, "Well, who are you?"
Tell my business.
Well, he has a scar in his left eye, and he said he got that from being hit by a car. Is that true? I said, "Yeah, honey, that's true. He got hit by a car." And they're like, "Oh, really? Oh, wow." And then one kid like, "Did he die?" I'm like,
yes, he did.
I'm like, "Babe,
he's a ghost.
He's right there. Yeah, he's right there."
You see dead people.
You're a sweet man because I would have just tapped that kid in the head. It's like, you're okay. Just go home. Just go home. This school has failed you.
I was like,
go home and repeat that question to your mother.
Yeah,
we have failed you here.
Julian died one time, but he's okay now.
He's actually a zombie.
Holy shit.
Yeah, exactly.
He gets bitey sometimes. Watch out for that.
All right, so you go through this scenario. How did you? All right, so this is a testament to your work ethic, to your artistry. How did you go on?
Well, so the day started with my producers was, here's a script ready to do my 3rd film in Mexico. I'm freaking excited. To them contacting me and me not answering my phone for 24 hours. So I had spoken to my assistant director, she's like my right hand man, right hand woman, and I told her what happened, and I go, "Honey, I don't think I'm gonna be able to I'm not doing this one." I go, if they can't wait for me, I don't know what's gonna happen with Julie. They have my script, they paid me for it, they can move forward. I don't care at this point, And she's like, "Okay, honey, no worries, I'll take care of everything." And so to their credit, at that time, my producer called me and he said, "Listen, man, take care of the family. Yeah. We're not doing this without you. Take as much time as you need, and let us know when we can move forward." so this happened in January. He's like, but the latest that we can do this is March.
Okay.
We'll wait for you as long as you as long as you
48
need.
hours.
But
Yeah,
till March.
absolutely.
But we need an answer.
I didn't say anything. I just said, listen, I understand if March doesn't happen. I go, give me till the end of February to give you a decision, but start pre-production.
Yeah.
That's what I told him, and he said okay. So about mid-March, no, actually the beginning of February. So it was a month had gone by, and Julie's walking, and he's almost back to normal. My wife says, she's like, Go do your movie. He's fine, babe. And I'd completely forgotten about it. My mind wasn't there at all. And I said, are you sure? I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. And she's like, yeah, absolutely, go. You worked hard on it. You're excited about it. He's fine. We'll be fine. I have my great in-laws that were coming by and helping out. So I called him up and I said, yeah, man, let's move forward. And he's like, great. So pre-production started for me at that point. And I went to Mexico in March and shot my third feature. So then and with my second feature, we screened the end of February. That was done. So it was interesting. Then I was working on my fourth and fifth screenplays at the same time. And there was a lot going on between March and I guess the end of August. So in that time, I had 3 more films lined up because Blockbuster was going to finance my next 3 films.
For those who don't know what Blockbuster is, Landis, would you care to explain to our audience what Blockbuster is?
R.I.P.
Children, gather around the campfire. Let Uncle Landis tell you the story of the good old days.
When I was your age.
Back in my day.
It was
It was
1995, 2008. And before the streaming and the
Netflix.
instant gratification that is Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Amazon,
Dollar
iTunes,
Redbox,
CBS Access,
PlayStation
Network.
pirating site.
Your forefathers and mothers had to personally get in the car, drive 2 to 3 miles,
or walk,
go into a store, walk through the store,
Yep.
look at each and every one of the 10,001 choices of DVD films and video games,
like a library.
pay,
What?
take that home for only 2 days,
Only.
If they had it.
if they had
They
it.
had it.
And then run like hell because you forgot to return it, and they're going to charge you
Yes.
again and again
Yes.
every day for late fees.
Yes.
That was our hell.
Yes.
So a movie that you were originally supposed to have for 48 hours that you rented for $2.99 ended up being $45.
Yes.
You had it for a week.
Yeah,
Yes, because
pretty much. Pretty
You
much.
left it
Pretty
by your
much.
TV,
Which
like
would
stacked
be
under
like
others.
6 months of Netflix monthly subscription.
Yeah.
Great. And, then
And also, they had
doing
no
the
porn
mail-ins.
available at Blockbuster.
None.
No porn.
Nope.
They also started upgrading doing the mail-ins with Blockbuster too. Like you can make your sections, and then DVDs would be mailed to you.
Well, that was and also Netflix. They were competing with Netflix. Netflix was the first one to do that.
Yeah.
Original Netflix was they mailed you DVDs.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, and then everyone competed against them, and then Netflix.
Yeah, and
won.
Netflix was like, I have the power. I am Netflix, and I have all the monies.
Now
Yeah.
Blockbuster is gone.
Yeah, along
But
with
anyways,
Tower Records.
One in Alaska. There's one in Alaska.
That counts.
Yeah, there's one in Alaska.
Wow,
yeah,
that's a reason to go to
no.
Alaska.
Whale watching in Blockbuster.
John Oliver just bought. What's his name?
Lenny Kravitz.
Australian.
Big Bird.
You were
Hugh Jackman.
not helping.
Hate you.
Literally going down my
much.
list of names.
No.
Hugh Jackman.
No. Okay. Stop. Gladiator. Well, who's
Russell
the
Crowe.
actor?
Russell
Russell
Crowe.
Crowe. He had his auction because he's getting a divorce, so he's auctioning all his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So John Oliver bought the crotch piece for that boxing movie he did, the boxing gear, and a couple other
The
stuff.
Contender.
Yeah, the Contender.
Yeah.
And then sent it, and on this last week's show, set to that Blockbuster. So you don't close down, become a museum with the movies, and we'll send this all to you. So he paid like $7,000 for the crotch piece, another 10 for this, and he's sending it to them. Wow. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
To keep it
Yeah,
alive.
to Alaska, because that's the only one that's around.
Oh my
That-
God.
That is so funny.
Wow.
So there's some Inuits somewhere with Russell Crowe's
There-
crotch piece.
There are
Pretty
other
much.
people in Alaska too. It's a lot of people.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
In Alaska.
All right.
He just got very specific with the people group.
Yeah, well, you know.
I'm sorry.
It's just saying.
It could have been worse.
not-
He could have said Eskimo, but
Yeah,
fine. I thought he
True.
did a
He
really good
actually
way.
used-
to
I
get in
was-
there.
He
You
did,
know.
but I'm like,
I think you're-
multicultural.
Being
Like,
Jorge,
whatever, it's cool.
I know, but being Jorge, I was expecting a lot worse. He did a good job.
What do you mean a lot worse?
Let's give
It's
credit
growth.
where
We have
credit
to
is
use
due.
it. There is growth. There is growth.
Classification.
Okay, there
Yeah,
is growth.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Exactly.
Screw you.
But anyway, so Blockbuster.
All right.
Yeah, so no, I mean, long story short, like I remember my producer was like, "The Blockbuster guys coming to Mexico. Your films are doing well there because I had 2 there that were doing well, and they're going. They put my films, on the same shelf as American Me,
Right.
and so I was, and they go." They want to come down and just see your process and everything else, and they end up spending money on a trailer and bringing this guy down and showing him a great time. And I don't like those kinds of things. My thing is every cent should go to our movie, and this isn't big inconvenience for me, but I was like, fine, if this is what's going to help finance the other things. And then it turns out, I literally got back from cutting, from Mexico City, cutting my 3rd film, and got a call right when I got off the plane from my producer that Blockbuster is going out of business.
Oh, shit.
And that my 4th film was, they were going to still try to get the money for it, but it wasn't going to be from Blockbuster. And they had paid me for the script. I was writing on the script, and I was doing a lot, and I was getting paid for it, but I wasn't making that much money.
Yeah.
And I wasn't bartending as much either. So because I needed the time to write and to edit and to do the things that I was doing. So this is right after the housing crisis or the financial crisis, 2010. So people, I've been a bartender for a long time. It's supported
Crappy period of like 3 years
Oh,
there
yeah.
between 2007 and 2010, and then we had the writer's strike and all of that shit too.
Everything.
Jesus,
So
everything
it's
was
just
like,
like
it was like the perfect
terrible.
storm.
It was a perfect
Yeah.
storm for me to lose my house. So I fell behind on payments. And once they said that, and then, I had this other film that I was writing called Counterpunch with Alvaro was an actor I worked with a lot. It was his life story. These 2 punks that
Danny Trejo was in that.
Danny
too.
Trejo was in that. That one ended up getting made, yeah. So these 2 guys that wanted to finance it ended up not being the real deal and wasting a lot of my time and energy. And so I had 2 projects that fell through that I was counting on that money to get me through. So now I'm scrambling. I'm picking up extra bartending shifts. I had this really weird year where, my son got hit by a car and I'm doing what I love. I'm not making a ton of money because it's independent and the future's looking good. I went from that to like September. We're like, okay, I got to start bartending again because I don't have enough money. I got to start catching up. And by December of that same year, I just couldn't catch up. And the banks and the real estate agents were very aggressive. And so it was very strange. We did a screening. I had money. I did a screening for, it was called Nikki and Jackie. The distributor changed it to Confession of a Gangster. We did a screening at Raleigh Studios, and it was weird because I was getting notices constantly that they're going to take my house, and then I was screening my 3rd film, and everyone was loving it, and it was getting distribution. But like I said, the money is not what people think in independent film. It just isn't. And so, by January, we had completely lost the house, and I had to find us. The one thing I did do, my biggest fear, so it was a full year that had passed from Julie's accident, and my biggest fear was picking him up from school, coming home, and there being a sheriff there saying we have 3 days to get out. Like that was my biggest fear. So real estate agencies started contacting me, and I basically told them all to communicate with each other, and whoever is going to pay me the most to move out in the next 3 weeks would get the house.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a decent-sized check that gave me a window to take some time off, find a great apartment in a great school district for my children, which I did, and find a great apartment and move out. And that's what I did. And so it was...
It must have been tough on you and Carla.
Yeah, it was.
At that relationship?
I thought it was going to. I thought she was going to... That was going to be it. I thought that was going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. She had been through with me a lot of struggles because I never... How do I say? I never brought the struggle of an artist and my job home. I liked being a dad, and they were my escape. I wasn't the kind of dad that was like stressed out all the time and anxious all the time. My children had no idea that I was going through all this. Now, when my book comes out in June, they're both asking me questions, and they're going to read it and they're going to know, like, wow, we didn't know. Wow, that's what was happening. That's what, you know. And so I didn't want them growing up in an anxious home, you know. And when I told...
How un-Latino of you.
I know. Exactly. The home I grew up in, Jesus Christ.
Good
like
man.
Everything was don't piss off your dad. You know, he had a hard day at work. I'm like, I'm just happy to see Dad. Why can't he just be cool? Like,
I just wanted to say hello.
he's at home. Like, we'd run up to Dad and be like, no.
No, we need to change that shit. Good man.
Good man.
So I wasn't that. When I get home, they ran up to me, man. I freaking love that. So when I told Carla, you know, I basically said, this is what's happening. I thought I could fix it. I can't. And we're going to have to move. And she just basically said, she's like, this is our house, but it's not our home. Our home is wherever we go. So that pretty much settled that. And I was fully prepared for her to say, you know what, I'm going to go move with my mom. I'm taking the kids with me. You want to be a filmmaker, that's fine, but you figure it out. That's what I was expecting, which was not a lot of credit to her, but I just felt like at this point she deserved better, and I wouldn't blame her for leaving.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But thank God I was such a good dad, because there's no way she's going to leave, you know?
Exactly.
I'm amazing.
She might like think about it and go, damn, he's just such a good dad, and my mom and dad love this guy. Fuck, I'm going to have to stick this out.
But it's good that you're writing the book and you're sharing here in the podcast, because that's kind of the point of our podcast. Like, there's a myth to Hollywood. There's a myth to to what being a director is, because everyone sees the Academy Award and this, and great, that's one aspect.
Right. Yeah. And there are people that will project that. But
and there's plenty of people here that make a great living, and you'll never know who they are.
Right.
And we make our films and we make our projects and we make money. Sometimes not good. Sometimes, okay, we can make a living.
Yeah.
But no one will know who you are, really. We just do it for the love of it, and because, hey, it's a better job than sitting behind a counter.
Well, I mean, and again, like Landis was saying, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast, and it is the difference between being like seeking celebrity or seeking artistry, or seeking fulfillment.
Yeah.
You know?
I always say, especially Latinos, like in Latin Hollywood, always been very critical of Latin Hollywood, because I always feel like it's about validation. And my thing is, like, that makes us look so weak. You know, I told my daughter recently at her quinceañera, I did a speech, and I said, you know, be unapologetic in your pursuits and seek validation or permission from no one. You know, and when you have that, you're free. You're basically free to do what you want to do. You don't need anything from anybody, and you're not asking anything from anybody. You're doing your thing. And if people want to be a part of it, then great.
Yeah.
You know, but the whole Latin Hollywood thing is just always like, well, we're important and we matter and we this. I'm like, well, then do something.
Yeah.
Right.
Do it.
Show it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've made 7 films, and have any of them gone to Sundance? No. You know, has anyone done a profile of me? No. But that's not why I'm doing it. You know, if I get a film in the Sundance, freaking A.
Yeah.
But it's because I've done 7 that 8th one maybe get in, or 9th one make it in.
But that's a good point also. Like, and I've reached a point in my career where I'm not apologetic. I'm good at what I do. But I tell everyone that you got to see the hundreds of crap that I've done to get to this point.
Right.
Like, and Veronica, who's next to me, you can't see her. She knows, because I'm starting to direct her in some of the projects that I write, and she's like, oh, you kind of know what you're doing. Like, yes, because you haven't seen the shit I've done for the last 6 years to get me to this point. But it's a journey that you have to take, that people think, no, you're just a genius because you're born with it. No. Spielberg did crap.
Yeah.
Right.
He just figured out, okay, really quickly when I got to Jaws, okay. And still, he considers Jaws crap. He doesn't consider that a good movie.
But it's like so everlasting.
Yeah, it's like in all his interviews, his latest movies are like, no, Schindler Says is when I kind of feel like I got it together.
Wow.
Everything else in his interviews, he's like, no, I kind of did it. I thought it was okay. People liked it, but I didn't like it.
It's kind of like his version of student films. He's like, cringe,
exactly.
Cringe.
But even if you watch his student films, they're shit.
Right.
They're shit. But he did a ton of them.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of filmmakers that I reached out to, like, I can think of a couple that are always like, you know, you're always going to have haters, right? Yeah. And so it's like, I'm like, well, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And they're like, no, I don't want to do any crap. And I'm like, first of all, man, you got one thesis film out of film school.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything. I go, it has nothing to do with that. You just don't have the balls to put your stuff out there and have it be judged.
Yeah.
I go, because if someone gave you $1 million right now, you haven't made anything in 8 years.
Right.
I go, so that is going to be crap regardless if you got your budget or not, because you haven't done the work, man. I go, you can judge my work and say it's this or it's that. I really don't care. The thing is, I'm circling the bases. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid to swing. You know, you want to stay in the dugout and wait till the bases are loaded, and then you think you're going to hit a grand slam your first time up. I go, it doesn't work that way.
Well, it's also how you develop your skill set, right? By
You would
constantly
think,
doing it.
Trial and error.
I mean, you could have the talent. It's that Will Smith quote. The
Oh, yeah.
Will Smith quote is one of my favorite quotes. Talent, anybody could have talent, but skill is only developed by hours and hours of beating at your craft.
Oh, absolutely. And Derek Jeter said something really great recently. He was talking about, he's like, about someone who doesn't have talent. He's like, the thing is, you can't do anything about talent. Either you have it or don't have it. But you can do something about hard work. You know, you can work harder than anybody else at what you're trying to do. You may not be as talented as them, but you can outwork them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I've always said. You know, the people I've started with have fallen by the wayside. And some of them have been critics of mine. But I keep going.
You stayed.
You know?
I went to college
stayed,
with some very, very talented actors, and to this day, the only ones that I know that are out here in LA are working is me and one other guy.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
I know folks that come out here and they're like, oh, I'm going to make it big. It's going to be great. And then 3 months passes and they're like, I haven't even gotten an audition. I think I'm going to go back. And they leave. And I'm like, I am super confused.
Well, well, it's not only that. It's the and that's why I love the stand-up world in the sense that when you first start off, everyone expects you to be shitty.
Yeah.
But you have, even though everyone's kind of a dick because, hey, we're comics. But everyone takes that person. It's like, hey, it wasn't that bad, but here's my advice for your set to be better. But we all go through that time where we're being booed to our faces, and we get back up there, and we get booed again. And then we get one laugh. I'm like, okay. And then we get booed because we lose track.
Baby steps.
Oh, shit, I lost the audience. But it takes a lot at going through that and doing crap for a while to figure out your voice, how you like doing things, your individuality in this thing that a lot of people, we're not, but also I can't blame people because people from Kansas get a myth of what Hollywood is.
True story.
We sell the you come here, you got discovered in Starbucks, and now you're a star.
Instantaneously.
No.
Yeah, but how many of those even last?
Exactly, but but
I
that's
mean, where's Edward Furlong today?
Yeah, but that's
exactly.
Yeah, but that's the myth that we sell people, and even in when you go to theater school or any film school, that's what they tell. Like they don't really teach you. Like, no, you're gonna have to work, especially in an age where our phones are high tech that I can shoot a whole fucking film on this and look amazing.
Yeah.
And probably I'll get a Sundance because they'll go like, oh, that's the iPhone movie? Let's put them in Sundance because that's the iPhone movie.
Right.
Well, actually,
it could be a crap movie,
If it's
but
an
it's made
iPhone
on
movie of a road trip of a woman's sexual coming of age, then it'll get into Sundance.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
that was Tangerine. That was
There's
Tangerine.
not enough of those in the Sundance.
No, it's like just short story, but she knows the story so much, but through NALIP, which is the National Hispanic Latino Independent Producers.
Very
blah, blah, blah.
familiar with them.
Yeah. I'm with you where like I hesitate with organizations because there's a lot of people saying, oh, we don't get a shot, but don't do much. This one is kind of that, but they do stuff. So they got me. I got through them. It's still 50-50, but they do something. But I got through them through an Emergent Creative program where it was a CAA, and it was a full day. Only 20 of us made it to that program. I had to submit all my work, all my films, everything. Made it to the program. And I was really cynical. I'm like, sure. We're going to watch this and all that. But it was the best 8 hours I've had in my life because I learned more there than 15 years living in this town because it was each of us an hour with their executives, their development, their director staff. And the best advice I got was, I don't know if I can mention his name. I won't mention his name, but he's development director at CAA. If you've never been to CAA, I've never been there. I've been there once. It's a huge building. The assistants have a more expensive suit than my car.
Yeah.
That's CAA. So,
it's like walking into the future.
Yeah. No, I've been there once because of this. They have a movie theater. We were at the movie theater.
Right. Yeah.
And then they took me to their 20th floor to talk to this guy. I'm like, great. 5 minutes into this meeting, he's like, he looks at my stuff. He actually, I got to give him credit. He looked at all my stuff. Everything. Sits me down. 5 minutes into, you're a fucking moron. And I'm like, okay, this is going well.
This is
Right.
and that's start.
Yeah, like,
Thank you, sir. I think I'll just leave now.
Okay, but I'm again a comedian. I start back. I say that. Okay, this is fucking going well. So why am I a fucking moron? And it's like, so I read your bio, and you shot this with no money. You shot this with this. Why haven't you done a fucking movie? And I go like, well, I'm trying to raise money. I'm trying to do this. You're a fucking moron. And he sits me down and 30 minutes explains to me like, here's why you should not do a movie with money. You should do what you're doing now. Who gets into festivals? And I'm like, good movies? No. Moron. And he keeps saying moron. I'm saying moron. No. Moron. This is CA. I'm like, I kind of want to have your power. Are you on an episode
of the Goldbergs?
Yeah. No.
What is it?
He is the most flamboyantly gay executive I've ever met. And Hispanic, too. I think he's Colombian. But he goes to like, no.
Okay, we're narrowing it down.
Yeah. I didn't get to ask because he was insulting me a lot, but he gave me a lot of good info. But he basically breaks that, look, 80% of the films to get in there is stars. If you don't have a star, don't worry about it. You're in the 20%. And this is how fast he's talking to me. You're in the 20%. Who makes it into that 20%? He shuts up. I'm like, moron. 10%. Good movies. So you got to consider everyone is a great film. Everyone did a filmmaker. Now, if you do a great film with no money, and this guy did a great film with $900,000, who gets in the festival? And I'm very shy, looking like me. Yes.
Moron.
Why?
Oh, wow.
Why?
I thought he was going to say moron, but
No.
at least he said why.
Exactly. And then he looks at me. He's like, "Why?" It's like I don't know, because I can sell seats. Festivals are to sell seats. And if I can sell this guy who did this $1 million movie with no money, not this idiot who did the same movie for some money. So why haven't you done a fucking movie? And that was our meeting. And I'm like, okay, we'll talk later. And I walked out. And that was
Right.
That's how he talked to me and got out. But it put a lot in perspective that sometimes not having a lot and having creativity, it makes things
Creativity
better.
Is always, I get right now. There's a new wave of Latino filmmakers that are coming out and they're raising $22,000 to do their 10-minute short, and I'm going, why?
Yes.
$22,000 for a 10-minute.
I made Marigold, my latest feature. I made for $25,000, and that included sound, color, editing, camera, actors, everything. $25,000. I go, find a creative way. I go, first of all, you've never made anything, so you don't know how to spend that money.
Yeah.
Right.
I go, and you're gonna make what a 10-minute short film. Like, so what? Make a feature for $22,000. Now we have something to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, so. It is, I got to a point where I just, I would get filmmakers to reach out to me all the time, and I'm that guy that has reached out to all my heroes. I've reached out to every Latino that could do anything for me in this business, and would either be completely ignored or just downright rude to me. So
David Smith.
I said, I'm not going to be that guy. And so anytime a filmmaker has reached out to me via social media, if they write a decent enough message, it's not like, hey, man, how do I make a movie? Or an actor, hey, put me in a movie, man. I'm a boxer. You're making a boxing movie. Put me in the movie. I get those, too. I just ignore those. But occasionally I'll get someone say, hey, I've been following your work, and I don't know how you do what you do. I'm a filmmaker. I'm discouraged, and this, that, and the other. I'll go, okay, I'll meet you, and let's talk. And more times than not, they go and they do their things. I just empower them and let them know that you don't need anybody. You don't. This whole notion that we need support, like that's the whole thing I get tired of with Latin Hollywood. We need to support each other. We need to support. And here's the difference, and part of the issue I have with Naleep, and this is the difference with support, because HBO has been a huge supporter of Naleep for years. For years. They get a free bag, and you get the Arturo Sandoval story for the 10th time in a row. That's support. But how many filmmakers, how many writers, directors, how many actors have been on any of their shows? I'm not talking about HBO Latino. I'm talking about HBO. How many? And they have 2 Latino projects there now. They have All Involved, which is about the LA riots.